God of our fathers, the stars of life, for abundance of beauty and grace, you gave up the best in time and in space. Riches unremoved to fathom and find, heavens are not too high to fly. Oh, UOG, strengthen your wings and set to fly. Welcome and welcome to the SRI Seminar Series of 2022, second one, hosted by the SRI in collaboration with the School of Education Center for Educational Research. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of everyone here, and I would like to call upon the Acting Executive Dean for the School of Education, Mr. John Hagoiya. Please make him welcome.
We had this seminar series running before the COVID kicked in last year, but I'm glad that we now have the opportunity to attend the first presentation series after that closure, after that gap. So this morning I have the privilege to acknowledge Dr. Stephen Potek, our acting Provost Vice Chancellor, Planning and Development, for your time. Our acting Vice Chancellor and acting Pro-Vice Chancellor, Academic Research and Innovation, has sent his apology. He is with the team from Goasa, so he will, after that, probably come. With that, I have also had the privilege to welcome Executive Deans and all the students, staff members who are present here this morning. Our being students and staff members will only be strengthened if we attend sessions like this, because that is where you learn new information, new knowledge, you gain the experience that you should have, so that you are better prepared to do further research and also better prepared to do your assignments, learn about what is happening currently. So this morning you have the opportunity to be part of this group, and such sessions like this, people pay to go. It is free today, free courtesy of Somare Research Institute, that it is free, and make use of the opportunity to attend such sessions. And I wish all the presenters best of luck, and we learn from you as much as possible this morning. Thank you.
Professor Mark Solon holds a Ph.D. from the University of Auditorium in Canada, and honorary professor, doctorate, and a master's of education in administration from the University of New England, Australia. He is executive dean in the School of Postgraduate Studies. He is an experienced educator and administrator. He is teaching foundation, research method, thesis and writing, supervision of Ph.D. students and honor students at the University of Goroka. And we know Professor Mark Solon very well. He is also the pioneer Vice Chancellor at this university, and we are so glad that he continues to contribute positively to the academic areas of this university. So let's make welcome Professor Mark Solon.
What is the purpose of research? What is the significance of research? These are some first question. Are you wasting your time if you do research? Questions like that, people will ask us, and we have to be in a position to tell them why we do research. So I will try to have follow the session on this, and then hopefully in future I will continue to build on some of the topics. My presentation will be on the outline. We will deal with the definition of research, reasons for conducting research, and some steps in research process. What's the purpose and significance of that study topic? So for those of us who are going to do research or who want to do research, one of the requirements is basically we have to write a research proposal. Research basically is a process of steps that all of us researchers need to follow, to look for answers that we pose in our research questions. So we use that to collect data, we analyze information to increase our knowledge and understanding of a topic or issue that may be of concern to society. It's about raising questions about knowledge that we do not know. So we look for data to answer the questions. So we also do research because we want to address what they call gaps in our knowledge. And we replicate knowledge and we expand knowledge. Our job is to create, to disseminate, and to continue to expand our understanding of our own world, our understanding of questions that we do not know. That's why we do research. We do research because we need research to inform what we call policies. Policies are guidelines of what we want to do and how we're going to do things in government, in organization, in even our personal lives. But sometimes we make decisions and then we're not guided by research. So we can just make decisions and sometimes those decisions may not work because we have not done research on it. We also do research because we want to find new knowledge about ways of doing things. Sometimes we do things, but we can do it better if we do research into it and find out evidence that can tell us that we can do something in a different way. Let's take, for example, a simple example. Many years ago, people believed that the world was flat. So if you went out and got to the horizon, you would fall off. But sooner or later, somebody proved that, no, that's not true. If you went around the world is round and you'll come back to the spot that you worked in or you started from. So this is just a simple, example saying sometimes we may think that we know the answer, but if we do more research, we can also improve on that answer. And we may do things better. So when we suggest new ideas, we can also inform what we're doing, practitioners. What we're doing, we can say, listen, we're practicing, doing certain things in certain ways, but it can be done better. How about you do this? We try this. So it can improve our lives and improve the way we do things. We become more efficient, for example. We also do research because we want to build our research skills. And what are the research skills consist of? We do research skill by collecting data. We don't just go and get any data. In research, you have to plan it well. You decide on your topic. You design your research questions so that when you go out to collect your data, you know exactly what you're collecting. If you don't line up the questions well, then the common language is you may be backing up the wrong tree. The possum may be in one tree and you and your dog are backing up the tree that there's no possum in it. And that's what research questions, if we develop them, you will be guided and you will go look for evidence that exactly answers those research questions. This is a challenge for many of us because if we don't design it, when we go and collect the different information and data, and when we come back to try to analyze the data, it becomes a challenge. So the common attitude is, hey, collecting data pinisa sol. We find him hard. Why? Possibility that we didn't align the research question well. But I will not spend too much time on it. Hopefully we will get an opportunity to go into some of these details later. But let's continue on. We have to develop our skills in analyzing data and interpreting data and synthesizing data and conceptualizing those so that we can begin to reach the areas, the answers that we started off, answering those research questions that we went out to look for. So these steps, the details of it, so I'll try to go quickly, but we will get some more time later on, hopefully, in some more seminars of this nature to try to deal specifically with them. But first thing, there are at least 3 general processes that we want to look at. And they're basic. You raise a question or hypothesis, and then you go collect data as evidence to prove or disprove that hypothesis or answer those research questions. And then we can talk about it. You can say that, yeah, I found the evidence for these questions, so I can say that this is one way or this is the results that comes out of that research questions. So the first step, I'll just go over quickly the steps. The first step is you have to choose a topic. And then you talk, why is it important? Why are you doing that research? Again, we have to address that, state the importance of the research, and it's basically why, answering the question why. And often you start by looking at how will your research contribute to new knowledge? How will your research contribute to policy in the sense that can your research address policies that are being practiced but may not necessarily be the most efficient way or be the best way in that policy? So if your research can address that, then you can help inform policy makers to say, hey, this policy is not quite working, but my research and my findings suggest that these are possible ways that we can do it. And you can disseminate that kind of information in your research by seminar presentations such as this. You also do research when you review literature. You have to review literature because the literature consists of knowledge that have been created in the past by other researchers, and they will have published them through publications. And so by conducting research, it's no good you just generalizing and saying that this is what happens. You extend your knowledge, we extend our knowledge by going and reviewing the literature or where other people have done research, similar research on that topic. But there may be gaps in the topic that you are researching, but first of all, you learn by developing and reading more into that area, the topic area, so that you become informed about that information that is in relation to your topic. So that if anybody asks you about that information, you should be able to say yes. And you may get questions rising from the audience saying, have you read this? Do you know about this idea that is related to your topic? You should, if you read the literature, you should be confident to say, yes, this is what it was about, and my research is contributing to it through that. But more importantly for your review of literature is the fact that when you finish collecting your data, when you come back, you analyze your data, and then you come to the process that says discussion of your research. Question is, what do you discuss? And how do you discuss your findings with other findings? If you don't do the literature search, then it's going to be challenging. So the discussion is that you begin to relate your findings and compare it with others who have done similar research in that area, so that you can argue or debate whether your findings are either similar to those information or they are different. And that's what research is all about. Challenging or agreeing with what has been done in the past, has been researched in the past, and then saying, this is the result. My study either compares or agrees with that or disagrees, and in whichever way, you have to give reasons for it. In research as well, you have to specify what kind of approaches you're going to use to collect your data. And there are several common ways, many common ways, but the ones that are most common to any research are what they call a quantitative approach. Now, quantitative approach applies more to what they call numbers, where they are more specific. The answers is either yes or no, and often they come in, what's that idea again? They come in questionnaires, where people just tick yes or no, and then you have to use statistical packages to try to analyze it. That's the so-called quantitative research approach. The other is called qualitative, where it consists mostly of words. And those words are described, you collect those data along the qualitative approach by using interviews, doing observations, and then analyzing the data. In some cases, you can do what they call a mixed approach. The common, sometimes the multiple approach are some of the words that they use, or a mixed approach. Again, I've explained, you use the instruments, but instruments means basically your research arm in the way you're going to collect your data. So things like questionnaire, interviews, even observations, taking pictures, all these are different ways of you collecting your information. After you collect, then you analyze your data. And again, how do you analyze your data? You can use statistical packages to determine that, or if you're doing a qualitative research approach, then you may have to what they call, the most common way for qualitative research is what they call content analysis. Now, content analysis is basically you analyze the content of what you have collected. In a quantitative approach, you will have to crunch some numbers, statistics. But in a qualitative approach, the most common way of analyzing your data is called content analysis. Content analysis basically means you analyze the content of the information you have collected. And based on that content, you will formalize what we call themes. You then, now, let me take a little bit of time to do this to try and explain that approach, because I think that might be more relevant to some of us who are analyzing our data now, especially if you are using the qualitative approach. You analyze your data by going through those interviews, you transcribe the interviews, for example, and then you look for keywords that are related to your topic. But more importantly, the keywords that relate to your research questions. That is very important. Your data, your research becomes only valid and reliable if you answer your research questions. If you don't answer your research questions, then again you will have missed the boat. Because your research questions are the key, and they are the guidelines for you to answer. Once you answer those research questions, you prove by collecting your data, and your data answer those research questions, that you have done a good research. If you don't answer the research question, then you will have to go and find new data to prove, to answer those research questions. So analysis of data is important. So what you do is, how do you select your themes? Selection of your theme must come from the keywords that are related to your research questions. In other words, you have to analyze your research question very carefully so that you know what the evidence that is going to answer those research questions. Then you begin to form them into your theme, and then you analyze the theme and you work what they call the funnel approach. From the general theme, you begin to reduce it carefully until you get to the specific evidence that answers your research questions. Then of course, if you've done all that and you've discussed it, you compare it with the literature that you have read about and are aware of, then you can report your results. Or you have your results, then you do that by reporting it in research papers, in presentations such as these. And for us at postgraduate level, if you go into postgrad, of course you have to write the thesis. And again, the thesis is a process of carefully relating those information that you have collected as part of your study. One common challenge that most of us research beginners, and this applies to all university students and anyone who wants to be an academic, we forget what they call the references. Often the first assignments that we get hardly has any few references. And that applies to postgraduate as well as most of us. References are the key information that you show by saying that you have read sufficiently to draw conclusions and write about in your research. But many forget about the reference. When I look at assignments that come, first thing I do is I read, and one or two in-text reference, I go to the reference point, and if it's not there, there is some questions are raised to say, where did this person get it from? Did they cut and paste? We should not give evidence to researchers and our readers to question that we may have cut and paste if our references are not there. So basically those are some quick general outline of why we do research, the purpose of conducting research, the significance of our research, and I trust that later on we can go into some of the more details in these steps of how we develop and guide ourselves in conducting research. On that note, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Mark Solon, for that, for taking us through the process of research, and it is also very significant because at the University of Goroka, our core business, one of our core business is research and publication, so it's important that we are familiar with the processes of research. Mr. John Rombo is the acting Ph.D. for the Division of Special and Inclusive Education and Curriculum Studies at the University of Goroka. He has a Master of Education and Master of Special Inclusive Education with First Class Honours from the University of Waikato, New Zealand. A Bachelor of Education with Honours, Second Class Upper Division from the University of Goroka. Postgraduate Diploma in Education and Bachelor of Education from Massey University, New Zealand. He has vast experience teaching in Papua New Guinea and abroad. Mr. Rombo has a wide experience and exposure to international practice. He has been in the Middle East. He was at the University of South Pacific in Fiji, and he has taught in almost all the South Pacific island countries. So we are fortunate to have Mr. Rombo here to share some of his experiences with us, especially on the topic that he has prepared. So let's all give him a round of applause.
I will present on research publication, scholarship, and international ranking. Now, Professor Mark Solon has set the scene, the background in which the research process is very, very important. Unless you know the research process well, then the output will not be at an expected standard. So it's very, very important for lecturers as well as students to be aware of the research process itself, because that's the essence, or that's the basis of you doing for example, doing your thesis, as well as you doing your research and your publication, which research publication is very, very important, because this is the end result of your hard work. The research that you do, the end result is that it has to be seen. People have to know what kind of research that you have been doing. Otherwise, you do a very nice, good research, very good scientific research, and it might be collecting dust and sitting somewhere in somebody's cupboard, and then sitting there doing nothing. So that's why publication makes a very important impact on people's lives as well as society's life. So your research must be published. That means your research must be recognized. And then at the end of the day, that research output must have an impact out there in society. We can claim ourselves to be very good researchers, but then at the end of the day, when it is not published, then it might be just collecting dust and sitting there doing that, maybe in a good library, or maybe in a cupboard, or somewhere else. So that's the angle I'm coming from. First and foremost, you have to know the research process very well, and then your output is the research publication output that becomes very important. 10 points that I've come up with why you do research. Research expands your knowledge base. Research gives you, number 2, research gives you latest information. Research helps you to know what you are up to against. Maybe against the colleagues, against the institution, against the country, against the world. So in other words, you have to be ranked, or you have to be recognized in terms of your research output. Number 4, research builds your credibility, especially when it is published. Then they know that, oh, this guy has done this research in this context and this part of the world. And when it is out there in the public domain, then they know that they're using your work to improve their lives. So that's where you get your credit. Research helps you narrow your scope. Research teaches you better discernment. Research introduces you to new ideas. Research helps with problem solving. That's exactly what research is there for. Research helps you reach other people that you have not known by taking a look at your publication out there in the public domain. They will say, oh, where is this guy coming from? Or where is this lady coming from? They try to track you down. And then, oh, this guy is coming from Goroka, University of Goroka in Papua New Guinea. That's the impact. Number 10, research encourage curiosity, so that what is out there that you want to investigate further. Many of your postgraduate students sitting here, and also our lecturers, it's very important that after you have done your good research, that you have to publish. That publication aspect has a lot of impact because of the fact that people will be using your work, People will be referencing you, people will be citing your work, and that's the impact that you want to see. So it would be really nice, postgraduate students, as well as lecturers, after you have completed your thesis, then work with your supervisor again and then say, hey, how can we publish this material? So out of that one honors thesis or master's thesis, you are already publishing 2 or 3 articles. You don't have to go and do another research. You can do that, you can use that, the results of your thesis or your honors thesis or your master's or your Ph.D, and then you can do publication. That's an angle. Publishing, the word publishing means the act of publishing with recognized institutions. It's very, very important. When you publish, there's a difference between just printing and publishing. For example, you might do a very good, nice research and then you publish these somewhere maybe in, let's say, UOG printing. UOG printing is just a printery. That's where you print your A4 papers and you print your course guides and maybe your research work. But then there is not a publisher. The publisher has to be recognized. And that recognition makes you for your work to be recognized locally and internationally as well. There are 2 very important paradigms that we use in research that we have to be aware. This leads to publication, the kind of publication output that you want to get. So research paradigms are very important. The positivism paradigm entails that you are looking at the quantitative research approach. Then you're looking at what professors talk about, you're looking at the numbers or so-called hard sciences. People believe that hard sciences is the best. That's the most scientific way of investigating the world, knowing the world, and doing research. But recently they're saying that now there's a traditional approach of viewing the world. So empirical research, you're looking at numbers, statistics. Yes, that's just one part of the research pathway. The other paradigm is called the interpretivism. Interpretivism is the soft sciences. For example, we're doing interviews, we're doing observations, literature review. Then this leads to, the first one leads to empirical research, leads to empirical research output in terms of publication, your journals, maybe a book chapter, that kind of stuff. And then the interpretivism leads to conceptual research output in terms of your research papers in journals, etc. Now, the second one, it has to be, these are not just narratives. A narrative is different. In narrative, you're telling a story. For example, I went to LA and I bought some chips and I ate, but then I was still hungry, so I went to another shop and I did this. You're telling a story. It's not even supported by literature or what other people have already found out, what other researchers have already found out. So both of them, they have value. They have value in society. Now, when you publish your research work, very, very important, refereed journals. Refereed journals are journals where you have, there's an editorial board in place and there are also editors who go through what they call gatekeeping process. That gatekeeping process is very important. You cannot just say, oh, I published in this journal and then my name is already in there. Yeah, that's fine, but then it said refereed. That means the other experts take a look at your work to confirm that yes, this research output is of relevance and is of importance and is of top class. Books and book chapters you can do publish in there as well. Monographs, creative achievements, these are very important. Your inventions and your patents, if you have developed something very new. Patents are, we are not really doing it here, but then we are doing innovations. But the patents are very new ideas that you can commercialize. If you think that you have found the cure to HIV/AIDS, then tell us. You can present, but then it has to be already published and it has to go through the gatekeeping process to confirm that yes, this research output is of top class, and it is now it has gone through the gatekeeping process, among others. Okay, now editorial process of doing research and publication. After you have done your research, or you've gone through the research process, and then you have written a very nice article, and then you want to send this to a journal. Now, but then that journal is very important. So, what kind of journal do you send it to? You have to ask yourself. Now, on Google you will see a lot of journals out there. Some journals or some publishers, they call it predatory. Predatory are those publishers who claim to be publishers, but then they're not. They just want to use you to commercialize their own revenue. But they might say, oh, your publication is now on maybe eBay, your publication is on Google, but then it has never gone through the peer review process, that editorial work, which is the gatekeeping process. That's very, very important. And the peer review is very important. You have to, after you publish that, you send that article for peer review. Peer review can be done by somebody who's in your field, like for education. I mean, my area is especially inclusive education, so it can be sent to that another person who is in that area. A peer, somebody that I can work with. There's another process, they call it blind review. Blind review, you send it straight to the journal, and then they have the journal editorial board and the prerogative. They have the right to send it to whoever they want. You don't have to know, but then it is sent to an independent reviewer to ensure that it's a gatekeeping process, like I said. It's to ensure that that research output is of quality and it meets standards. Then after you have sent it, they will say, then they make all kinds of comments and then they will send it back. Oh my gosh, I've been publishing, but then how come these guys are putting me down? It's a process, even the professors, they go through this. Even those who already have PhDs, they go through this peer review as well as blind review process. And then they say, okay, you have to do second draft. Okay, second draft, we want you to improve in these areas. They send it to you, and then if you still don't meet the standards, then they will say, you still have to do the second draft. And the third draft. If it goes to the extreme of third draft, sometimes they will say, we reject your article, because it's not up to our standard. Or sometimes if you do a really good job in the first draft, they will say, yes, this looks really good, so we'll now publish it. And if they give you that green light, that's a credit for you. In the Asia Pacific region, most of the universities now, they recognize Australian Research Council. Australian Research Council, you will see ERA, EAR, that stands for Excellence in Research for Australia. When your journal, for example, if you have a journal at UOG, and then if you want to rank, if you want that journal to be ranked, then you can send it to ERA, Excellence in Research for Australia, that's Australian Research Council. And they will take you. They will take you and they will say, now, okay, this now, your journal, by looking at the impact of your journal, the number of publications that have gone through, and the quality of the research itself, they will say, we rank you maybe C. Your ranking is now C. That means you are at a lower level. So you have to make sure that the gatekeeping process is up to date, and also you must encourage high quality research output. Once high quality research output is included, then you can also again apply to ERA and then say, now look, we want you to rank our journal again. And then they say, oh no, I think you've done very good improvements, so we'll now put you B. also, that's another step further. If you did really well, if they know that journalists contributing or making an impact, huge impact out there, they will say, oh, we rank you A. And the highest that you can go is A star. A star rank is the top class of the ranks that you can publish. If you publish an A and A star, oh, that's really top class. That means your ranking has been improved. And you can say that, hey, I'm publishing this ranked article, ranked journal. This article has been published in a ranked journal. And you get a lot of credit in that area. For example, in Talent Francis, many of you might have heard of Talent Francis, there's a publishing company in the US. If you publish there, then you're most likely to get A or A+ rank. Now, when it comes to ranking, many of the universities in the Asia Pacific region that I've known, they're using ranking systems. And one of those accepted ranking systems that they're using is Sense Publishing. Sense Publishing is based in the Netherlands through Sense Publisher. And they already have Sense Publishing ranking, A star, A, B, C. After this, I will show you the ranking, how it is done. And then you also have the ERA as well. ERA, there's a ranking there as well for ERA, Austrian Research Council. And they have big, huge number of journals as well as publishers that they have already ranked. They say, okay, this publisher is ranked at A level, A star level, or B level, C level. And then you might also have come across things like, for example, universities ranking. And one of them is 80 scientific index for international ranking sample. This is very important because your individual research that you do, it has been captured by the publisher. After it has been captured publisher, it is already with the publisher. Maybe a copy might be sent to you. And then that publishing is already, most of it already online at the moment. When it's online, then it's easier for the tracking system to kick in. Then they will say, like I already told you, the impact of your research output. Okay, they will say, now look, 80 scientific research, indexing will say, now look, that's a tracking system. They will track you and they will rank you. Individuals are ranked, individual research are ranked based on the quality of the research output as well as citations. How many people are citing your work? Not just in assignments, but in another quality research. That's where your ranking improves. The more high quality research output you make or you produce, and then you publish with these already recognized publishers, then your ranking improves every time you contribute an article or a chapter. And that's very important that we have to be aware. Because we don't want to just publish and then shove it under the carpet or somewhere and then let it collect dust and leave it there. People have to use it. The moment people use it, remember these people also, they are publishing with these ranked publishers. When they're publishing with the ranked publishers, then you keep, the more people they reference your work, the more ranking you get. And your chances of you moving up, your ranking improves. So those are things that we have to be aware. The other way that you can do through any scientific index is you can do Google Scholar. Google Scholar is highly rated. You will not see anything that's just been on the internet where it's just cut and paste stuff. These are published work and done by recognized publishers or published by recognized publishers. Google Scholar. Once you are in Google Scholar, then they will track you very easily, and you will literally see your ranking. Then you can say this is A rank, this article is A rank or A star rank, or B rank or C rank. And people who have gone through the ranking process, they exactly know what it means to be A rank. A rank means that's a top class article that people are aware that you've gone through a lot of stringent process to get published in that with that publisher. Once you publish in a rank with a rank publisher, then you are tracked. With the use of Google Scholar, you are tracked very easily. And every time you publish it with a rank journal or with a rank publisher, then it's automatic. The tracking system immediately kicks in. And it depends on the impact that your publication is making in the world. How many people are having access to this and how many people are citing it? Because at the same time, their publication will also go into the publisher which is also ranked. And then your chances of getting yourself improvement in your ranking, every time it improves. So that's why it's very important for you for us to publish in already ranked with ranked publishers, so that our chances of our work being recognized locally as well as internationally is you achieve that. Always ask your supervisors and say, hey, can we publish? And your supervisors are there. They've already published and also they know what to do. And if they need help, then they can come to us and then we can support them to publish your work. And publishing is very, very important because that improves your ranking. And with this 80 indexing, scientific indexing, then it's easy that you can publish. You can, you can track yourself, and others can also track you. So that's a language I want to bring across to you guys, so that otherwise you might be doing high quality research and then you're not publishing. The publishing part becomes very important because it has to make an impact. And the number of people who are citing your work, you have to know that that work is of high quality. That's why people need your work. Thank you.
I'd like to call upon the next presenter, our third presenter, Mr. Moresby Goasa. He's a Ph.D. candidate in the School of Education, University of Goroka. Mr. Moresby Goasa obtained his Master of Education in Educational Management from the University of Monash in Australia, and a Bachelor of Education from the University of Tasmania and the University of Papua New Guinea through split campus programs. He is a lecturer in the School of Education in the University of Goroka. He is currently pursuing his Ph.D.
What I'm going to impart this morning is what I have gathered as part of my research. So I won't tell you everything, just a little bit of what I have observed. But if you want more, come again. There will be more opportunities for you to hear. Right, what I'm going to talk about now is how we can help students learn to learn. See, students can learn, but they will forget. But we are trying to encourage the students, our students here, learn to learn. Not only learning and then forgetting about it. They must learn to learn. And similarly, I think for us as well, we had some technical difficulties here this morning. Right? We are now going to learn to learn. We are teacher educators. We have all the knowledge and skills that we have to impart to our students. And when we impart those knowledge to our students, then students will have to learn to learn. And from what we learn, we can resource our students or our teachers, our student teachers, so that they can help their students in their school learn to learn. And students who don't learn or don't learn to learn are what I call fossils embedded in rock. So we have to encourage our students learn to learn. If they don't learn, they are like fossils on the rock. And how can we help these students? A lot of them, especially grade 10 and grade 12 leavers, they're all over the community. And they have nothing useful to do. And we are the ones who can help them get out of that situation. Now, I don't know if you have heard this word, paleontology. We are education, we as teacher educators are educational paleontologists. What is paleontology? Who are paleontologists? Have you come across this word? Paleontologists are scientists who study fossils and try to work out how long that fossil has been there for so many years. We all have witnessed a lot of grade 10 and grade 12 students leaving at the end of the years and who don't make it to the next level. They are all fossilized in the community that they live because of the system that we have. And we can examine what we have left behind to continue and how they will be like in future. As not only are we educational paleontologists, but we are also educational coroners. You know what coroners are? It's not coronavirus. Coroners are the people who do autopsy on dead people and find out the cause of the death. And they can even find the bullet and work out from which gun the bullet came. That's the job of the coroners. And we are educational coroners. We have to find out what's wrong with our system, what's wrong with our students, and help them learn to learn. So, we are educational coroners. This is done through good teaching, good learning, and good assessment practices. As teacher educators, we must have the desire, determination, and drive to help our students learn to learn. Now, as part of my research, I have come across some challenges. I have found in my earlier research that teacher-student ratio in state schools are very huge, very large. I asked my son about the number of students in his class. He's attending grade 9 at Goroka Secondary, and he said 92 students in one class. Can you imagine teaching that many students, and how would you assist? And these teachers are having a hard time, difficult time, because they cannot give students individual attention in class. Just so many of them. And students, our teachers, sometimes find it hard to move around because there's no gaps for them to move around. And remedial work is not normally given until at the end of the term. And teachers are confused with AFL, AAL, and AOL. This is what my studies has given me. So I'll share that with you. AFL, that's assessment for learning, where the teachers assess the students so that they can improve in their learning. And AAL is assessment as learning, which is the feedback that the students will use to improve their learning. And then AOL is assessment for learning, is what they do at the end of the term or at the end of the semester. Assessment of learning. And then we came across a new one, which is AFT, which is assessment for teaching. So the teachers will assess the students, and from the feedback that they get, they will have to modify their teaching so that they can assess the students better. So that's AFT. That's a new one that we have come across. So you have the benefit, for those of you who are here, you have the benefit of knowing that new one, AFT. Some challenges continuing. The classrooms are overcrowded. Teachers' movement in class is restricted. The teacher cannot move around and look at what students are doing. The teacher cannot. No space to walk around. And teachers are unable to mark exercise books in the class, let alone take them home to mark them. Can you imagine 92 students, 92 exercise books to mark? And teachers are unable to discuss their work with the students. Now, the ideal situation. Now, Mo has come up with 4 strategies that we can use in our teaching. That's teacher to group, teacher to individual, student to student, and student to class. So, the teacher to the group. That's an ideal situation. You have less number of students, and the teacher is presenting to the class, and there's very good interaction between the teacher and the students. It would be better to teach that number of students. I did 6 students, I mean, maybe more, but the camera got only 6. So what I'm trying to advocate here is that in our tutorial classes, we should try and reduce the number of students in our tutorial classes. Say between 25 to 30 would be an ideal situation. Now the second one is teacher to student. All right? So that's 1-to-1. And then the next one is student to student. All right? So student may be discussing something for clarification or for further comments. And then you have student to group. Now in this case, I'm suggesting here that for those that we select must be students who are very confident, who are able to lead the group, good leaders. They can take this. In an ideal situation, we need a teacher to have a manageable class. A class that he or she can move around. And then teacher can also give individual attention because there's less number of students. And teacher can move around and assist. And then teacher can mark the exercise books in the class. We have witnessed that. Very good, very good. And teachers discuss issues with class. Because it's a small group. And then students discuss issues with each other. That's an ideal situation. And even students were able to write answers on the board for others to see. So, in the way of summary, we can encourage our students to learn, to learn, learn to learn. So, after this session, all of you should be thinking about students learning to learn. Not learn for information only, but learn and also learn to learn. And so for us as lecturers as well, we have to learn to learn. And in this way, the students become independent thinkers and researchers. And we are talking about research here for assisting the students or helping the students or encouraging the students to do research. And this is one way. If students are able to learn, then they are able to be independent thinkers and researchers. And they can continue to do more research in days to come. And that's all. Your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Can we have the last presenter for our session today? And I would like to introduce him. He is Dr. Kravia has a professional Doctor of Education in Research, James Cook University in 2017, Master of Education, James Cook University, Bachelor of Education, University of Papua New Guinea, 1986. He has a wealth of experience as a secondary school teacher, lecturer, guidance officer, head of guidance and counseling division, National Department of Education, student counselor, academic consultant, and researcher. Dr. Kravia is currently the leader of guidance and counseling strand in the School of Education at the University of Goroka. Let's all give him a round of applause.
Thank you. This is the outline of my presentation. I will go to abstract, preamble, introduction, background, research question, methods, findings, results, summary, and then, if time allows, question. Abstract, instituting a comprehensive guidance and counseling program as an integral component of P&G education system should nurture smart, wise, healthy citizens of Papua New Guinea. And counseling is a process of helping individuals to understand themselves by discovering their needs, interests, and capabilities in order to formulate their goals and make plans for realizing those goals. Findings indicate that P&G is stuck with a poison model introduced in the 1970s by Australia, while Queensland has progressed with a comprehensive program model. Literature review indicates strong evidence of developed countries employing a comprehensive program model, while developing countries, including P&G, continue to embrace a poison model where surveys are more versatile. P&G has to explore authentic and practical approaches to transform the poison to a comprehensive guidance and counseling program model to foster holistic human development, thereby reducing poverty, exclusion, ignorance, oppression, and other barriers towards creating a smart, wise, fair, healthy, and happy society, as enshrined in the Government Vision 2050. Okay, I'm presenting my doctoral thesis. I use the transformative paradigm research approach to investigate guidance and counseling services in P&G
schools compared to that available in Queensland schools. I used a mixed method approach involving three study methods: autoethnography, survey, and interview. The research questions that guided my thesis were: one, what were the subjective life experiences, and what are cultural, educational, political, and social understandings, and how have these informed my work in guidance and counseling in Papua New Guinea? B, what is the scope and type of guidance and counseling services currently available in PNG schools, and how do these compare with those available in Queensland schools? How could guidance and counseling services in PNG be improved to benefit all students? Contextual background. The Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. The process of changing from an agrarian or handicraft economy to one dominated by industry and machine manufacturing. Those technological changes introduced new, novel ways of working and living and fundamentally transform society. Part of guidance and counseling. So, during the Industrial Revolution, people started to become more specialized in using in the factories, producing products, and in that way became specialized in their job. And then around that time, around the early 1900s, guidance and counseling came onto the scene. Guidance and counseling programs was introduced in schools for vocational purposes. There were need for job specialization, focus on position of guidance, no benefits of relief of teacher, lack of concentration, centralization, and unified program. So guidance came on board around that time, and they tried to use guidance and counseling. How can they be able to use that subject to help prepare people, especially in this case students? And there wasn't much importance when it came to guidance subject in the schools. Then something happened. There's a country in Africa, Nigeria. There was this one particular school that always came top academically. And they said to question themselves, what's so special about this school? You know, in Papua we always have our top 10 academic schools every year. Now they're publicizing, and the schools try to see who is in the list, the top 10 schools. So Africa started to look at the school outputs every year, academic bright students. And they realized that this particular school, St. Teresa's College, a school that was administered or run by the nuns. And they were always coming top. And they found, what's a magic? And they realized that magic was guidance and counseling. It was not in what they were doing. It's a guidance and counseling program, because it was a holistic program. It was helping students to be holistically attended to. And then when they were given the best guidance and counseling treatment, then the students were able to produce the best. So, the federal government of Nigeria said, all the schools now will introduce guidance and counseling up to the university. And that's what they did. And now that's why they are improving and moving on. In the experience, in our cultural ways, we had a houseman, house-married. We had cultural values and practices that were very, very useful. They were very, very productive. Then schools came on, churches came on. They enriched and enhanced some of them, but some of them, churches said, no, those practices are very dangerous. Those practices are devilish. Those are not acceptable. And they said, we forgo with those practices. Of course, some of them were still good, but unfortunately, they labeled it as devilish, so we decided to go with. And some of us said, no. And passing to Muna, we must move on. Was a white man. Somebody was named to us a white man to passing to this. So, when we started to change and try to adopt, we forget some of those values, some of those good practices. And we are becoming a lost generation when it comes to our identity. Because we don't know
some of our counselors. The guidance and counseling was introduced in the 70s by Australian government, but the focus was on aptitude testing for the grade 8s, then moving into grade 10s and then grade 12s. There were only 4 regional guidance was at that time who were visiting schools in our regions. Secondary schools were not many, so it was okay. And then with the education reform in 2000, outcome-based education came on board. They said, no, guidance and counseling is not an important subject. Put it aside. Solve it. Let's introduce PD. So PD was guidance was put aside, and PD came on board. PD is not a guidance and counseling alone. It's an elective of science, home economics, PD, and it's a mixer. As a result, the value of guidance and counseling was downplayed by outcome-based education. Then government policies came on board, the TFF, the tuition-free, fee-free education policy, no one left behind. As a result, we have a high enrollment in schools, like just the previous presenters alluded to. Classrooms are filled with all kinds of a number of sizes, in terms of age, in terms of class sizes. As a result, we start to face a lot of disciplinary problems in the schools, and so on. And high students exits, according to Tapo's report in 2014, when he was the secretary at that time. Grade 8, around that number of students, about 106,000. Only 8,000 move on to the next level. 26,000 went back to the village. 10,000 in grade 10s, 47,000, 17,000 went into grade 9, 11. 20,000 went back to the village. Grade 12, 17,000. 6,000 made into the institutions, 11,000 went back. That was in 2014. The figures have drastically changed today. In one of my studies as as I've said, it's like looking at myself, and as I object of study, to see what is there in me that I have learned, that I've gone through experience in my life that has made me to be who I am. And I found it in a home, yes. The home that I grew up in helped me to be who I am. And but unfortunately today, we have families with family problems, family issues, and their students or their children are not attended to properly, not proper guidance and counseling is given. As a result, the students are pushed into the school system, and the teachers are also, on top of the already overloaded tasks they have to attend to student behavior issues as well. Absence of houseman and housemaid, we have not more values, the cultural values and all this. As a result, there are no mentors, there are no role models in the village setting. Like one example, one instance, when I was growing up in the village, my grandfather used to tell me, don't go out in the night. But that was one of the ways to control population growth. Because young men were not able to move around. Young women were not allowed to move around at night. So, in a way, the cultural belief control itself helped to control population growth. Now, yeah, but when the light number, so no for it low. Tambaran Sangolo night. I can do the common saying that labor board is beginning. Because now, no for Sangona, Tamaran, so I don't know night. And community leaders' qualifications, drug bodies become the leader in the community. Who can be a role model? Who can the people in the community look up to? Schools are calling classroom conditions. Yes, we look at the quality of teaching materials in the school, the buildings and the facilities. But what about us teachers? We point our fingers at the school condition, but the teachers, we're not in the classroom when we're supposed to. We're not providing a role model. We're not teaching what we're supposed to be teaching. As a result, students have problems. Some of us are not there teaching because we are slaves to table papas and mamas. They are looking for us, so we escape classes. And the poor child is not given that instruction. He is not given the guidance and counseling because the teacher is not there to help us child to be the child who he or she is supposed to be. When I was as teachers, we spend, say, out of the 24 hours, 8 working or active hours of the day we spend with the students. Out of the 7 working days, 5 of the working days in a week, out of the 7 days in a week, 5 of the working days we spend in the classroom with the students. And as teachers, the best part of our lives we spend it with the classroom, with the students in the classroom. As a result, you and I as teachers, we are the big influences to the students that we have in the class. So if we are the agent, if we spend more time with the students than their own parents, then you and I have to be their role models. We need to spend the time listening to the students' issues. So schools could consider in transforming guidance and counseling services by linking with locally established social cultural PNC systems like Houseman and House Mary. Okay, the other 2 surveys, activities, survey and interview, the findings in PNG compared to the schools in guidance and counseling services in Queensland. In PNG, they treat guidance and counseling as an ancillary subject, which means that one teacher doesn't have the number of loadings. They top up the guidance and counseling, but you can teach him Islam. You don't have to have special qualification. So there's another teacher who doesn't have the required teaching loans. But when it came to, when you compare to Queensland, it's a very key subject because this subject attends to the students' holistic need. That's how they treat it. Immediate range of services when it comes to PNG. In Queensland, it's a wide range of services. In PNG, like I said, untrained guidance officer or counselor or teacher. In Queensland, it's a requirement. You must have a qualification. You must have a degree to be a counselor or guidance officer or a teacher in a Ph.D. or guidance. So it's special. Guidance counseling service perceived as not essential. When it comes to the principals or head teachers allocating a budget, last better. Their 4 core subjects, English, Maths, Science, Social Science, they give them the big part of the cake. The guidance, you got none of you, no right. Maybe next time you will go. So it's very important. In Queensland, it's a highly, the PNG, guidance counseling perceived as key activity. So they have a budget allocated. Sufficient money and support is given to guidance counseling. Lack of networking and collaboration in PNG, highly specialized network. Ratio, 1 guidance officer in PNG is to about 66,000 students. That's why some of you, when you were in grade 10 or 12, no guidance officer visit you because there are so many schools to visit, so many students to visit. In Queensland, 1 guidance officer is to 1, the ratio of 1 guidance officer is to 1,500 students or less. The ratio for guidance officer in PNG to schools, about 225 schools. That's why some schools are able to be visited, some schools no. In Queensland, 1 guidance officer is entitled to 3 schools only. So they have enough time to visit every school and they're able to provide guidance counseling services. In PNG, no permanent guidance officer positions. In Queensland, they are senior permanent. When I took my son to on my study, I transferred him from Goroka Secondary to do grade 10 in Townsville. When I brought my son to the school, it was not the principal. It was not the deputy principal who saw me. They referred me to the guidance officer, the school counselor. And it was the school counselor who attended to my child. And the school counselor made sure that my son established himself, settled, and knew his way around. And that's how important the guidance and counseling person is in the school. And he always checked to see that he's getting around, he's settling in and all his marks and everything. He was monitoring him all the time. In PNG, we have asked, when I was with the Department of Education in 1989, 2000, we asked the TSC to create guidance and counseling positions in the schools. Up to now, that submission is still waiting and nothing has been done. They see that maybe it's not important in the schools. So they are not in the mood of creating their positions in the schools. In Queensland, they have positions, they are funded, and they are always available, they are always on the ground. No qualified guidance officer or counselors in Queensland. They are qualified counselors, guidance officers. No budget. I've already said that one. Lack of professional development while in Queensland it's going on. Papua New Guinea has to transform its guidance and counseling services so that the schools have a program model comprising comprehensive services that are holistic, in which it addresses every student's needs across all domains: academic, career, physical, social, and emotional. It must be comprehensive, and so equitable access to opportunities for all students from every socio-economic structure, race, ethnicity to participate fully in the education process. Accountable, defined guidelines and evaluation process. Collaborative, involve all stakeholders and encourage networking. Appropriate, socially just and cultural, equitable services in line with world practices. Relevant, sustain PNG government's integral human development policies. PNG Vision 2050 states, we will be a smart, wise, fair, healthy and happy society. We will be ranked in the top 50 countries in the United Nations. To achieve that, the way to go is guidance counseling. In conclusion, PNG's HDI value of position is 155 out of 189 countries of the United Nations. But by 2050, the government wants to be the top 50. That the current position in 2019 is 155. It's a big task. You and I have a role to play to reach the government's vision 2050. All the government departments, NGOs, they are working around the programs, the activities are targeted towards 2050. See how they can improve the HDI, Human Development Index. You and I, what are we doing to reach the dream? The top countries with the HDI, in the HDI ranking, we have Norway as number 1, and 1 up to 10. You'll find that most of them are European countries. They are developed countries. And that means that their services, education services, poverty and everything, they're okay. And to be in there, Papua New Guinea from 155, it means we have to jump 100 steps. And how we do it? Our politicians must become honest in dealing. And how can they become honest? If there was no proper guidance and counseling provided. Because in guidance and counseling, we try to promote self-esteem, self-respect, honesty. And if it's not done, because they all talk about business studies and they are lawyers, so they were focusing on lawyer, and the lawyers become liars. They are focusing on accounting, they become thieves. If we were given good guidance and counseling, then they would be good lawyers, they would be good accountants, they would be good doctors. Otherwise, most emphasis was given in the wrong place. Transforming guidance and counseling services to a comprehensive program that services in line with world practices. This would ensure that more culturally appropriate and socially just responses are made to meet the diverse and complex needs of all students, not just advantaged few as the case now. The education system can contribute effectively to the government's Vision 2050 to a comprehensive guidance and counseling program in the schools. To be ranked in the top 50 countries in the UN HDI by 2050. We'll be a smart, wise, healthy and happy society by 2050 if we only provided through a good program where everybody puts into guidance and counseling. With that, thank you very much. I'd like to thank Somare Institute for giving me the opportunity and the chairperson for allowing me this, and thank you very much for attending and listening to me, and I hope I've converted some of you.
Direct my question to Mr. Goasa about helping people to learn. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish between to learn. Yeah, these two things, they say the same thing. What I saw from the presentation, the ideas that were put forward, I thought they're pretty common and practiced today. They're practiced by teachers in the classroom, or perhaps practiced by universities or lecturers in universities. But what I thought would have been mentioned, the key, that I thought key area to mention in this helping to learn concept should be the teacher or the lecturer should be knowledgeable, should be creative. With that kind of knowledge and creativity, I believe a lot of things will be transferred through creative activities that can foster the kind of thinking that you want to bring out in the students. What kind of thinking is it? Critical thinking. So I thought if the lecturer or the teacher is knowledgeable, has expertise, has creativity, that person will be able to create those kinds of activities to foster whatever can generate creative thinking in students so that they can learn best. Thank you.
My focus of the presentation was on students. We, as teacher educators, we can do what we can to enhance student learning, but it is the responsibility of the students to take that from us and build on that, and then in that way they will learn to learn and become independent thinkers and researchers. So that's my focus. We are teacher educators. We are okay. We know what we have learned, but it's us to help our students learn to learn, not learn and then for the sake of rote learning and all that stuff. No. My focus is for students to learn and to build on that and learn to learn. And in that way, they will be good thinkers and good researchers. Thank you. And thank you for your consent.
Dr. Kravia, from what I've learned from your presentation is there's a real need for counseling in school. Now, what happened to the program that you were running after some years ago, training of school-based counselors?
Yeah, when I was with NDOE, we used to go around the schools, the provinces, and conduct school-based counselor training. Unfortunately, it was the program was funded by European Union. We wrote to the European Union and OSAID to fund trainings. And when they ceased to fund, then that's when we couldn't continue. So, yeah, financial problem. We did that to back up for non-trained, with the increase in number of enrollment and students facing a lot of problems, we thought that one of the approaches is to train teachers with basic skills in counseling so that they are there attending students' welfare issues and also academic issues. So that was one of the approaches that NDOE engaged to provide people with basic counseling skills to attend to students in the schools, and that's the program that Mr. Puno is referring to. Yeah, because of financial issues, we couldn't.
What I'm talking about. We need more counselors at UOG. Would you agree with me, Dr. Kravia? More student counselors, and we should include counseling as part of the integrated training program. If you are here, you must also be trained also as a counselor. In order to fix it out there before you send them in here. We call it the boombox generation. We might say, also call them those who do not know where the authority is. Thank you.
The question is in relation to overpopulation, both in university plus secondary schools. What do you think should have been done incorporating the two concepts? I am a mother of 2 students, and I've been trying to put my other son to do grade 11, and they just gave me a social science class stream, which my son's son is physics and major maths. And they, just recently, about a week ago, they told me, sorry, but there's space and pull up, and we cannot transfer your son to either science. And I got very mad and I wanted to blast the secretary. I said, is it for the school or for the students, so tell me. So what do you think should have been done with the numbers increasing? Both here in tutorial classes, I have about 60, and I cannot teach students to learn. It's a problem. Thank you.
Yes, I have observed some schools and observed the lessons, and it was impossible for the teacher to give individual assistance because the population in the classroom was just so huge. And then, teacher is having difficulty even walking. The teacher has no space to walk around the classroom. It was so crowded. And that's the dilemma we have at the moment. And because this has been politically motivated, there's nothing much we can do, but we can think of ways on how we can address this. And then maybe try to reduce the number of students, but that can't work. Or we can have them in time slots. Some students come in this time, and then other students come at that time. Maybe these are just the thoughts I have, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult. That's why teachers are really struggling, and they can't encourage the students to learn because so many of them in the classroom. And I have no answer to that. Thank you.
In addition to that, like I was alluding to the situation where we wanted TSC to create counselor positions in the schools, so that there would be a trained person on the ground providing issues, handling issues around whatever problems they have. So that teachers concentrate on teaching. And this particular person will be a full-time counselor or help with PD or guidance because of that issue. Unfortunately, that is not done. So when you have a lot of students enrolled and a lot of social issues, even some of the bright students supposed to be the top A students are affected. So because that side of his life is affected, he doesn't do well, he's on the street, and you wonder why. Because he cannot have his or her issue, welfare issues or social issue, whatever, it's not addressed. So you can see a top student coming out of the school for some of those reasons. And with that note, for the last 2 years, thank you that it's in front of the PVC PNP. UOG doesn't have a female counselor now for the last 3 years. With the increased number of students here on campus, we're supposed to have a male and female counselor.
My question goes to Dr. Kravia. Now, the emphasis here, I'm sitting and listening, is to have a counselor on the ground. In your investigation, were you able to come up with another model for PNG schools, given the overcrowding, teacher shortage, etc., etc.? The first model that we're emphasizing is to have a counselor on the ground. Is there any other model, according to your findings, that can work for PNG situation with all these problems that we are encountering? And I would like to suggest one model, is to have all the teachers, and I'm saying this, seeing the importance of value system and the ethos of the institution. If that can be integrated in a model where that program is embedded in the school, and it is a lived experience of the student when she comes to the school. Thank you.
The churches who are also playing an active role in that area as well, where In the church agencies, we have very effective service available to help the students with problems. With the private schools or with the public schools, we don't have the people there like the church to help out in the area. The other thing is the involvement in the community leaders. But nowadays, whenever you want to involve community leaders, it's like a money pastor. Cannot just come in. Before, yes, we were able to, when I was going to school, primary school, we used to have these old people in the community to come and take us one day in a week, they would come and give us some. But nowadays, it's no longer there. When you want to engage them, like money pastor. So, yeah, it's something that we can look into. And thank you for your other suggestion too. And you coming from that field, I'm sure you have that experience. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the 4 presenters this morning. They done well. They did the research quite well. First comment to Mr. Goasa. I like the phrase that you use, the fossil in the room. Parents are the fossil for the student. And we are the first teacher. And then the classroom teachers are the second model, the second teacher for the student. So I like that word, fossil. Fossils in the rock. Students are the rock. Fossils are in there. It's how to open up the nutshell so they come out to learn. So I like that phrase. Next, Professor Solon. The themes are important in our research. The different themes where you associate with the topic, it really helps. And that's good. I like the researcher in the field to use them. Because different themes will lead up to that particular subsection in your research. And it enhance and explore, widen the meaning of that particular section in your research. So that's a good point to pick up from there. Next, Dr. Kravia. Yes, I took a note, and TMT will advertise a position for a female counselor next year. And my last question goes to Mr. Rombo. Can you make an analogy of the monograph and abstract in our writer?
There are different outlets where research can be published. And monograph is one of them that I just said. Abstract is it's a basic summary of the entire research. And it's very brief summary. It might be like 150 words, maybe 100 words. But then it captures the entire research. It talks about that, especially the methodology used and the major findings. Monograph is, yes, it is a document, it's a research, but then very limited in its page numbers, as well as, for example, if you take a look at NRI, they use a lot of very small researches, and then it comes in the form of a monograph. So these are kind of research outlets where research can be, research work can be published.
Joy Asiure, who has been the mistress of the ceremony or program today. We acknowledge her leadership, and Ms. Joy Asiure is the Research Center Director for the Educational Research Center. We thank her for her efforts. She's been working very hard in the last 2 weeks to pull together the presentation and also to work with respective presenters to compile their bio and also their abstracts for the presentation today. So we thank Ms. Joy Asiure for providing that very important leadership role. Thank you. This is University of Goroka's Somare Research Institute seminar series, which will run throughout this year. We have a schedule for this semester as well as next semester. So we've shared this with our academics through the emails, and I hope that you have downloaded this schedule and save it on your desktop or print it out and pin it on your wall so that you follow the fortnightly seminar presentations. So this week, in fact, last 2 weeks we had the opening of the UOG SRI seminar series, and then we provided, at that opening, we provided the overview of all the research programs and activities at the University of Goroka. And also we invited the top management team to share with us their dreams and their aspirations for the university in relation to research and publication. And so for those who attended, I hope you appreciate these presentations, because it gives you an opportunity to learn and to appreciate the efforts of the top management team and also the university holistically in moving research and publication forward, so that we maintain visibility and also try to increase our productivity and output in research and publication. So that was that first overarching presentation, which was delivered 2 weeks ago. This week we featured the School of Education, Research and Publication, and all the efforts and the wonderful work that the School of Education is doing. There are a lot of issues and challenges within the School of Education, and we need to work as a teacher education institution to understand those problems and challenges, and that can be driven through research. We can do research based on the issues and the challenges that are facing us at our university and find a way out of that. The presentations that we heard today from Mr. Goasa, from Mr. Rombo, and also from Dr. Kravia and Professor Solon provides this sort of platform and brings us together to understand the challenges on the ground and how we can improve these challenges for our universities. So we take the top management representation today as well, and we've just received an instant response from Dr. Potek, who is the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Policy and Planning, but also represents the top management team to be in this discussion. And he's assured us that there'll be a position for guidance and counseling advertised, and recruitment will be done next year. So that's the kind of discussions and dialogue we'd like to encourage here at the university through the seminar series and such presentation. So we thank you all for coming and attending. Now, after 2 weeks, in the next 2 weeks, we will have the School of Humanities. That's on the 27th of April. We will feature School of Humanities presentation. Would like to hear the challenges, would like to hear the research possibilities, and we also want to learn about the good work that you are doing in the School of Humanities. So please, take the challenge and put an abstract together and work with the coordinator for the School of Humanities, who will work closely with the Somare Research Institute to facilitate your presentations, is Dr. Bill Sagir. Dr. Bill Sagir is the Research Center Director for the Center for Melanesian Studies, and we ask that you work very closely with him and also with the Executive Dean for the School of Humanities, Mr. Sakaya Botu, who is also here with us, and he will encourage staff members in the School of Humanities to present papers and share your research dreams and research opportunities and research possibilities that you are doing and you'd like to share with us. Okay, so if we have less presenters from the School of Humanities, then we will invite other schools, such as the School of Postgraduate Studies, Institute of ITVET, also School of Science and Technology, to also present 1 or 2 papers if we have less presenters in the School of Humanities. So School of Humanities, you must make sure you have the numbers to present, like the School of Education did today. Thank you, School of Education, for leading the way.